Just a Job is the podcast for the modern woman to redefine what success looks like. We highlight real women and their real stories.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Just a Job. Before we jump into Addie's episode today, we have a little bit of stand-up, and we, if you haven't seen on social, have a lot to talk about because we crossed off something on our goals list. So Ellen, what was that? Let's hear it.
So excited. Oh my God, did you just hear that email come through? Let me turn that off. I'm so sorry. Thanks, Outlook. What did we get to do this past week? We were invited by Miss Gabby Troutner, which angel of a girl, of a gal. We met her through the Women on the Rise event in September of last year. She is my boss, Toby, she's not my boss anymore. Oops. Well, my mentor, Toby's niece, is how we got introduced to her. And she currently is a sophomore at KU and is in the Kappa Kappa Gamma chapter. And one of our goals was to speak at a college event in some way, shape, or form. We kind of talked about doing a sorority, like specifically speaking at chapter or something. And funny enough, she had the same idea. So we came together, said, let's come up with something, pick a date. And we did. So on last week, Monday, we officially got to talk to the KKG girls at KU all about how to be proactive in their careers. And it was so much fun. It's still, I can't believe that was only a week ago. It seems so long ago already. But I'm so proud of us. What were like some of your thoughts going into it and then during and then after?
Yeah. I mean, anytime you're talking to somebody younger, it feels intimidating. And for some reason, especially college-age women feel like, oh my God, what are they going to think about us? Because as much as we try to exude confidence, of course, we're a little intimidated. So I think that was our initial thought. But honestly, just excited to have the conversation because I think a lot of what we talk about, we wish somebody would have had the conversation with us while we were in school because I guess to give some insight into what we talked about, which you haven't, if you don't know, go check out our social post because Ellen put together this cute little reel or carousel of what we discussed. But just as much as we emphasized, these are important things to think about for your career. And this is how to level up and, like be a great employee. We ended it with like, hey, it's okay to slow down, have fun, and not know what you're doing. Because at that age, and especially now with social media, it just feels like everybody at 20 needs to know exactly what they're going to do for the rest of their life. And there's this unspoken pressure to have it figured out. And so hopefully we're able to like burst the bubble a little bit and show them. And then eventually if they're learning or listening to the podcast, be able to expose them again to other conversations from other women where it's like, I went to school for this and now I do this. It's like, okay, great. Because we had a few women that came over and talked to us afterwards. And the general consensus is like, I don't know what I'm doing. It's like, great, me either.
And I've got 10 years on you. So like, don't worry. It was interesting, like kind of finding that balance though of like, here are some things that you could literally go do today that would take you in total 30 minutes and it would still like put you ahead, quote unquote, of like where you were earlier, ahead of another person, whatever. And have that like proactive approach in your career, but also know that like, it is okay. And you're probably doing more than the average person anyways. So you're already in a good spot. And again, to your point, like enjoy the time while you can. I don't know about you, but I felt like such pressure and a rush to like get through college, get the job. And I'm like, oh man, I wish I had taken a little bit more time to enjoy. Well, I certainly did my freshman year of college, but taken more time to like enjoy and like take advantage of the schedule and the environment and the friendships and all of that in college versus this like go do, go get the job, etc. So it was so much fun. I have to tell the story because I think it's so funny. And I told Sarah this like as we were walking to the car after our presentation had wrapped. So at the end, we like asked if anyone had any questions, like to raise their hand physically in the presentation and ask us questions. And no one did, which was totally fine. And we had a couple of girls come down and ask us questions afterwards, which we said, hey, we'll be here afterwards. Come down and chat. And it was in an auditorium setting of the room. And so Sarah and I are at the front, and then there's like this cascading seats all the way up. And I'd say there's at least 100 girls in there. So the way that they did attendance was like they had a little piece of paper, I think, with their name on it. And then at the end, they had to like walk it down and put the piece of paper down. So we wrapped that marked the end of their chapter. And then their president was like, thank you so much. This is the end, blah, blah, blah. See ya. And so chapter ends. And Sarah and I kind of like walk over to the side and I see the entire chapter stand up and start walking down the stairs. And I was like, oh my God, we're going to have to form a line. There's so many girls who want to come and ask us questions. And then I saw that they were all, majority of them doing attendance. And some stopped by and asked us questions, which was really nice. But in the moment, I was like, oh my
God. We have touched every one of their hearts.
It made me laugh. So I just had to share that because I'm like, even us, everyone's like, oh, they got it all figured out. Maybe not. And so just like a funny, I don't know, personal anecdote that happened after it. I thought, even thinking of it now makes me laugh. I'm like, oh, well, that's okay.
Yeah. A handful of them came up and talked to us, which I thought was big. And then afterwards, we were like, oh my God, they started following us on social and then like messaging us. I was like, oh my God, I feel like we have 400 new friends.
Oh my God. And even just like we got a couple of like DMs and stuff as well that like said thank you and appreciated, like even called out specific things that we did that we were like, oh my gosh, like so worth it just to be able to get that kind of feedback to say like, yes, this was useful. I got something out of it. Thank you so much. Like, it makes me so excited and so proud of what we're doing. And I'm like, oh, now I want to do it again. Like,
I know.
Where's the next one?
I know. I'm like, catch us doing tours at colleges.
Oh my God. When I got home, Tim was like, is it time for a world tour? And I was like, you need to stop.
Yeah.
It was really cute though.
It's going to get to my head.
I know. It was like, oh, wait a second. But I'm so glad that we were able to do that. And again, hopefully we can do something like that again in the future. But a couple of people at my work saw it, which like I always forget that I'm connected with people at my work on LinkedIn. Like I should probably make that connection like more purposefully. And people were asking me about it. And I was like, how do you know about this? Like, that's a weird, but anyways, I just thought it was like to see the reach that we're having is so cool. It's really exciting.
Yeah. Especially now because thinking about every person that we talk to knows a group of people that knows a group of people. And that's the strange world of social, especially. But yeah, all in all, fun. If you're listening to this, hello, Kappa girls and ladies, I mean. And yeah, I mean, I think that maybe in the future there's other opportunities for us to go and speak at other chapters because that is such an important demographic, young college women trying to figure it out. So
exactly.
Manifesting more of that.
Exactly. And you and I have firsthand experience of knowing what it's like to be sitting on the other side of it and what you're thinking and feeling. And again, like we say this all the time, we wish we had a resource like this when we were in college. So it's really cool to be able to pay it forward in that way as well. So anything else on the presentation?
It was fun. We got to dress up and speak to some really cool, rad people.
Honestly, the compliments on our outfits, I was like, please tell me more. Like, I need to keep going. Thank you so much. I haven't worn work pants in like months. That was really nice to be able to like dress up a little bit more,
I know. Also, not to mention my legs like have not been exposed in.
Oh, the first like exposure of the year is shocking.
It was scary. So
you ripped the Band-Aid off. So good job. Got it out of the way. Those are all of our stand-up notes. We are going to jump into Addy's episode, which is a really good segue from Kappa into Addy because she is newer out of her career. And of course, you'll hear more in the episode itself. But I think it's a good segue from if any of the Kappa girls are listening, I think they'll really enjoy this one as well.
Agreed. Well, Ellen, any parting thoughts?
If you're looking at this visually, I apologize. This is what my brain currently looks like. What a fabulous
vacuum
visual.
Sealed bags.
Seriously, like, like all my curtains folded up. You should see the pile of stuff over here. It's nuts. So send me some patience and enjoy Addy's episode. Those are my parting thoughts.
I love it. All right. Well, everybody enjoy. We'll see you. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Today, we are joined by Addy Ewers. She is a freelance marketer and social media manager helping brands tell their stories online. Before diving into freelancing, she worked in hospitality and tourism marketing at a digital marketing agency where she gained valuable experience in strategy, content creation, and digital campaigns. She graduated from Kansas State University, go Wildcats, with degrees in business marketing and strategic communications, which gave her a strong foundation in both the analytical and creative sides of marketing. Nearly a year ago, she took the leap and moved to Switzerland and has been learning to navigate life abroad, running her own business, picking up a new language, and embracing all the challenges and adventures that come with it. It's been an exciting journey for her, and she loves bringing a global perspective and fresh creativity to the clients that she works with. Addy, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me.
That was quite the intro. I am so excited, obviously, to jump into your current, but that's not where we start the episode. So, a little bit on how Addy and I have come to know each other. So, Addy, being a fellow K-Stater, the community runs deep, and her sister-in-law is a sorority sister of mine. Hi, Carly. And I saw right at the tail end of the year, Addison, that you had posted on LinkedIn about your experience of freelancing and excitedness for 2025. And I was like, oh my God, why have I not reached out to Addy just to see about what's up with her and her experience? So we're really excited to hear because we don't get too many globetrotters on the podcast. So we're excited to hear your perspective. But we'll kick it off, Addy. As a young girl, what did you want to be when you were growing up?
Yeah, I struggle with this question because much like anything in life, I wanted to be a million different things. I loved the idea of being like on TV, an actress, a singer, a pop star. All those dreams were crushed when I realized I had no rhythm, couldn't hit a note to save my life. As I got into, middle school and high school, I really wanted to be a pharmacist, which was so
Interesting.
not ever where I would see myself now. And then towards the end of high school, I was the editor in chief of my high school newspaper. And that is like really where I hit my stride. And I was like, okay, I just need to do something like this. I'm not sure what that means, but something where I get to be creative, talk to people, look at pictures, take pictures, all sorts of stuff like that. And so I kind of just let that guide me into then pursuing a degree in marketing and strategic communications, which was in the journalism school. So I kind of did just like a little bit of both. And then, yeah, had a business degree to fall back on as well.
So did you grow up in Kansas as well?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm from Wichita, Kansas.
Oh,
Yeah.
perfect. All right.
Yeah.
So you were looking like growing up again, you had those experiences. I also can relate to the pop star, like who didn't put on
Yeah.
performances for their parents to have a sleepover. I mean,
Yes.
my
I wanted
sister
to
and
be Hannah
I,
Montana.
oh, exactly. Like I still can remember my sister and I made like in sync dances and Backstreet Boys and performed them for our neighbors, which is kind of horrifying to think of now, but similar experience, if you will. And sounds like you went and continued your schooling in Kansas as well. So did you have a dual major or was it like one program with two areas of focus? Oh my God.
I had a dual major. So I got a degree in marketing through the business school, which was really great
Okay.
because I don't think I realized at the time how much just having a business degree would affect everyday life and just
Mhm.
definitely once you get into a corporate job. And then my degree in strategic communications is technically a journalism degree, but those classes were much more structured around like public relations,
Mhm.
digital media, social media, writing, copywriting, kind of like that type of work, which I didn't get any of that in the marketing school. So it was nice because I feel like I really got the best of both worlds
Yeah.
with the two degrees. And a lot of people will do one and then minor in the other, but it just worked out with my schedule and everything to do both. And I'm really glad that I did.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So, why the decision to do both? Was that a recommendation from someone? Was it your own personal desire? Like, what led to that decision?
Yeah, honestly, it was more because I couldn't choose. I am
That's awesome.
so indecisive. I am a very indecisive person. You can ask my husband, like anything. I'm like, well, what if, you know? And it was one of those things where I was like, I'll just start out taking classes for both. And a lot of things, so in both majors, you have to have an outside concentration. And so I was able to then have, for my marketing major, have an outside concentration in strategic communication. And then in strategic communication, my outside concentration was in marketing. So it very much they overlapped because like I had to do it that way. And then I came into college with quite a few credits just from doing, dual credit stuff in high school. And then I also did like studied abroad over a summer. So I had like summer credits. And then there was a couple other things I did over summers that helped me be able to graduate in 4 years with 2 degrees. And yeah, it really just came down to that. I couldn't decide. And I really didn't even know what I wanted to do with my career until like, honestly, probably the second semester of senior year, because marketing, I don't know how familiar like you guys are with the marketing world, but like there are a million different ways you can take your career in marketing. You can go into nonprofit, you can go into corporate sales, you can go into, social media, advertising, and kind of go on from there, public relations. And so the business school really focuses a lot on like sales and kind of that more like corporate marketing, pricing, stuff like that, even a little bit more like digital marketing, where the strategic communication degree really focused a lot on more of like the media side of things, which is definitely where I saw myself more interested. And then yeah, as I had internships and stuff, I narrowed it down into the more of the digital marketing media world. And I'm like I said, I'm still so glad to this day that I have both degrees, because there were things that I learned on each side that if I would have only done one, I think I would have felt like something was missing.
I wish we would have had this conversation like 10 years ago when I was in school, because I know we talked about it a little bit, but I got my degree, spent a lot of time in Kedzie through the journalism program. And I remember coming out of it feeling like I knew nothing about the business side of it. But I thought that by, through internships or career, my like first few jobs, that I would learn more about the business side. But I definitely felt equipped in the agency marketing setting, but not necessarily in like the business side. So it sounds like you were able to be exposed to a lot of it, which definitely set yourself up. I love your authenticity in saying you didn't know what you wanted to do until your second semester of senior year, because same, honestly. And there's so much pressure in college, especially, I don't know if you ever felt this way, Addy, but like having conversations with friends in different programs where they had their first full-time gig like September of your senior year, and you're just like sitting there thinking like, I have no fucking clue what I'm doing at the end of this. And it is like, it's just the real reality. And I mean, there's a lot of jobs that you can do, but you talked about internships and how those helped provide some clarity. What were some of the internships that you did while in school?
Yeah. And yeah, that was the other thing that was crazy too with internships. Just a lot of people in the world of like other degrees, when you get an internship, that basically means you get a job after college. And in marketing and social media and strategic, it's not like that. You get an internship.
You're just free labor.
Yeah. They just let you work, and then they're like, okay, we're good. So I actually had kind of quite a few like internships/jobs. I was definitely one of those people that like when I saw something, I was like, may as well apply. And so majority of my time in college, I worked for a property management firm, and they were based in Manhattan. So I was like in their office, and I ran their social medias, their marketing campaigns, and I did their like photography for a lot of their rentals. I worked under their like head of marketing and stuff, and that was some of the best experience I got, because I was in the office like 2 to 3 days a week in college, and they really let me do whatever I wanted for someone that this was like kind of their first real job. And so that was a really nice job. And then I had an internship going into my senior year with J.E. Dunn Construction. And I worked as a marketing intern there. And that was really, really cool. I loved that job. Like, shout out to their intern program. It was fantastic. And I worked in their marketing department, which was definitely different than anything else I've ever done. It was like proposal building. So you build proposals for construction bids. And that was really cool to see how that side of business worked. And then my senior year, I worked at a hospitality company in Manhattan where they owned a bunch of restaurants, and I helped them do social media. I helped with like menu design. I made like coloring pages for kids menus, lots of random things. But I would say like those three jobs really had the most impact on kind of tailoring what I wanted to do, because they were all different, but they really taught me what I liked, and really, really great experience. All of them were.
It sounds like you covered quite like
A lot of
across
different
the full
industries.
spectrum. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
proposal building, like you're putting together menus, like you're able to take like really that creative side and the business side, like kind of all during your last couple of years of school, which is so great. To your point, you're able to like narrow down of, okay, maybe I don't want to head down this direction, but I
Yeah.
also really enjoy this. So, by way of those experiences, you could kind of narrow down what you were looking for. So, what post graduation did you have a job lined up? Were you looking for something? What was that timeline like?
Yeah, so I actually graduated in May of 2020. So I
Oh
Mm.
God.
moved,
Oh
yeah,
Wow.
no.
that was a very, very interesting time. So we, like, our last, whatever, 6, 8 weeks of college were online, pass
Mhm.
fail. It was, the like depths of COVID. So I didn't, yeah, have like a true graduation. I did not have a job going into like spring break and stuff. I got laid off from that internship,
Mm.
and kind of really was like, well, what the heck am I even gonna do? And then I got really lucky, and it was like late April, I think, and I had a connection from one of my friend's moms, and she worked for a real estate brokerage in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and was like, hey, they're hiring a marketing coordinator. You should apply. And I was like, real estate? I mean, I guess that aligns with property management. Sure, whatever. Anyway, applied, got the job, moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma right out of college. And it was really perfect. It's crazy to me that I got a job during that, because it was so, especially for marketing, like
Mhm.
that was the first department that people were laying off. But it was a lovely job. I learned so much as a marketing coordinator at the real estate brokerage. And I got to move there like with my best friend. And we honestly had the best time just, quarantining in our little house, the two of us in Tulsa for a year. So yeah, I got lucky that I did graduate with a job. But it was definitely a weird time, a weird first year in the corporate world for sure.
Yeah, talk about getting laid off during an internship. I mean,
I know.
Yeah.
Ouch.
right. I'm like, people have experienced the depths of getting laid off as, so far into their career, but to like not even be in your first full-time gig and
Yeah.
get laid off and like have that kind of emotional experience at such a young age, if anything, prepared you for, potential future layoffs if they had
Mhm.
your way. Hopefully not. But
Yeah.
you talked about moving and, like living in a new state. How was the transition for you, especially given COVID and isolation and new job? Was it in person? Like, what was that? We talk a lot about the first few, like, couple of months after graduation and how you're just like in a tailspin. But how was
Yeah.
the experience for you?
Yeah, it was crazy. I like Tulsa was not even on my radar of
Okay.
like places I was gonna move. I wanted to move to like Kansas City or Wichita, or like I don't know, maybe somewhere else. And I was like, oh, okay, Tulsa. And like I said, it worked out because my like best friend, who I was already living with at K State, was moving to Tulsa as well. So I was like, okay, at least I'm not going into this alone where I don't know
Mhm.
anyone. So we ended up living together, and that made the biggest difference in terms of even just having a job that I didn't know anything about. She was doing the exact same thing. So we would be able to come home from work every day and be like, do you feel like you even know what you're doing? And we'd both be like, yeah, like, no, but we maybe tomorrow. And it was so much fun. And I think starting at that job in that way, like during COVID, was really interesting, because if you know anything about the real estate market in 2020, it was insane. I mean, it was like probably still to this day, some real estate agents like their highest earning year, because
Yeah.
it was like interest rates were crazy. Just a lot of houses were being bought and sold. And so it was actually a pretty fast paced job. And it was in person. We were in person 5 days a week during COVID. We were like spaced out in the office, so we weren't close enough. But it was definitely like, as far as COVID things go, Oklahoma was a little bit more lax. And so,
Mhm.
I mean, we were going to meetings with real estate agents. It really felt like as normal as things could have been at that time. And so I think it helped that it was in person. I just like couldn't, now that I've been remote for a few years, I could not have imagined starting my very first job fully remote. I'm so glad that I got the opportunity to be in person and learn how to communicate with, peers that have been in the industry much longer than I have. Learn how to just like properly have meetings with a boss in person, one-on-ones, all of that stuff that I just think was really valuable to me. But yeah, it was a great job and a weird time for sure. But I met like one of my best friends to this day. I met at that job. Like, I think it worked out as well as things could have for that time. But yeah, definitely a whirlwind. Yeah, I couldn't imagine, yeah, what it would have been like if it wasn't COVID.
Yeah, no kidding. You bring up an interesting point of like the in-person versus remote, and especially your first job. And we talked about this before too, but I think, and I can tell, I don't know if other people can tell, but maybe it's just a me thing. But when we have interviews like this, or even just like people I've worked with previously, or like younger staff at my current job, you can tell who has been in remote positions previously or in person positions previously, specifically how they present in meetings. I mean, it is different. It's easier to do it virtually. You have like, a degree of separation, right? So if
Yeah.
you screw up, you can be like, oh, sorry, there's a lag, right? But you can't do that when you're in person.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as I don't really love in-person work, I do think one of the benefits is to be able to have that skill of presenting, and even just like body language and other like social cues that you learn from in-person presenting, like you said, one-on-ones with your boss. I mean, it's a perfect example. So I find that really interesting, and I appreciate your perspective, given that that was your first job and you had that experience, right? Like I think that's unique as well, obviously, especially during COVID as
Yeah.
well. That's for sure. So, as that job is maybe starting to wrap up, are you looking to leave? Did something pull you out? Where was the next opportunity for you, and how did you get there?
Yeah. So at this time, I had been living in Tulsa for a year. My boyfriend at the time, my now husband, had been living in Wichita, working in Wichita, just bought a house in Wichita. So it was time for me to move back and like no longer do long distance. And I'm still thankful for my time in Tulsa. I wouldn't have changed it at all. But it was, yeah, that's what drew me out. I wanted to be closer to him. All of my family lives in Wichita. All of our family now still lives in Wichita. And so it was one of those things where we were talking about getting engaged, getting married, moving in together. And there was a job opening at an art gallery in Wichita for a marketing coordinator. And I was like, sounds right up my alley. Try something else now, a different industry. And so I applied and got the job and moved back to Wichita. And that job was also in person, and that was also a whirlwind of a job as well. But that took me back to Wichita, and then yeah, we got married about a year later. We got engaged like a week after I moved back to Wichita. So it
Good
was
man. Good
yeah.
man.
So things were moving, and so yeah, I moved back for him. But I also always kind of had seen myself moving back to Wichita, which is funny looking at where we are now. But yeah, so that's what drew me back at the time.
Ooh, talk about transitions, not just physically moving and going through the life
A
transition of
lot.
planning a wedding and those early 20s, man. I feel like we all had the capacity to take on so much work, and I don't think we realized it at the time. But now I'm looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, moving in together, like building a life, starting a new job, planning a wedding. It was like, what
Yeah.
else?
Moving. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And then we got a dog.
Yep.
Um, what else do we need to the list? But I think one beautiful thing about marketing, I mean, and you can do this across a lot of industries, is that you can take a lot of the skills that you learn and shape shift into different
100%.
industries.
Mhm.
So it sounds like you had this primary focus in real estate and development, and then you transitioned into an art gallery. How was that? To me, it sounds like it would be really fun, but how was the experience for you?
Yeah, so it was a nonprofit art gallery, which the nonprofit world is definitely not for the weak. I mean, you have to be one, passionate about what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
and then two, willing to work. It is long days, and you are, we had a 2-man marketing team, and we were doing maybe enough for like a 5-team marketing team, but it was good. And I did really like that job. And but it was a whirlwind, and I was doing everything. So at my old job, I was kind of doing like, at the real estate job, I was doing like such random odd tasks. And then moving into this art gallery, it was a lot more like I was helping with like fundraising, event planning, and then I was also doing marketing. I was also writing like newsletters. It was just everything. And it really, when you're that young, and this would be my advice to anyone that's starting in marketing, a job like that is great, because I learned how to write newsletters. I learned how to like, work on the back end of the website. I was, learning how to post reels and TikToks, because that was like when TikTok was getting really big. I was also learning how to fundraise and event plan and assist wherever I was needed. And that led into so many opportunities after that, because I could put on my resume and be like, well, what, like, do you have experience in? And I'm like, at this point, everything. Like, I know I'm only
Name it, I've got it.
years in. Yeah, but I'm like, anything that has to do with marketing, I feel like I've at least touched it at this point. And so it really, a lot of people in marketing do try to like niche down, and they're like, I just do social media, or I just do copywriting. And that works really well too. But when you're that young in a career, like I was, whatever, a year and a half in, it was like, yeah, why not? This is the perfect time for me to be doing everything.
Yeah.
But I actually only stayed at that job for about 6 months. So it was not exactly the job for me. And that's the con of a job like that, where you're doing everything, is when you're doing everything, you're like, I can't do this all. Like, I just felt like I was constantly, like, my to-do list was never ending, and to the point where I was never even crossing things off, because I would just show back up on my to-do list with more edits or changes or as the next round. And that to me was like really, really exhausting. And again, on top of wedding planning, and just at that time in my life, and a better opportunity came up, and that's when I left and started working at my previous job, which was at the digital marketing agency. And that was like my dream job. And so I did leave, not, and would not recommend that, leaving a job that quickly. But again, sometimes things just happen.
They definitely do. We talk a lot about, if you have like we call it the 3, but it sounds like in that role, like you didn't necessarily have the connection to the work. And as you mentioned, nonprofit requires a lot of passion. And on the hard days, that passion is what fills the gap. And like, if that wasn't there and you were, kind of reaching your max threshold, like, all the power to you. I think that so often we like beat ourselves up for not sticking out a role, but to me, it almost feels like by staying in that, you're not choosing other opportunities. And clearly another opportunity presented itself and the timing worked out great. But I mean, I wouldn't encourage everybody to only do 6 months at a job, like for every job.
No.
As somebody who quit their first job after 11 months, I very much had to grapple with the idea of like, I am not a failure because this didn't work out, right? Like, these things come our way, and if they don't work out, that's fine. But the timing, is the least of our concerns. So you made the transition into a digital marketing agency. Were you still living in Wichita? Was this remote? And tell us a little bit about being in the agency setting, what kind of clients you were working with.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about like dream roles and what we wanted to do earlier. And this was my dream job. I had always seen myself at an agency. It was just like, I got to get there, and I needed some more experience. And this was actually a referral. I had a friend reach out to me who worked at this agency and was like, you need to work here. Like, this is a great company. It was brand new at the time. And she was like, we're growing really quickly. Whatever, you need to join the team. And it was a digital marketing agency for hotels and resorts. And I took a social media coordinator position, where basically I would be like scheduling content and like managing socials for like 6 to 8 hotels. And then I also got to travel to those hotels to create content and start content creation. Yeah. And that was like, to me, that was like dream job, on a silver platter. I had wonderful coworkers. I had a great boss. they allowed me to travel, and they really promoted growth at that company. I grew pretty quickly there. And, moving from nonprofit to agency was a crazy transition. And also, this agency was fully remote. So I was going from 5 days in office, nonprofit work, to fully remote, social media, just social media. And so that was quite a transition, but I loved it. I loved working from home. I still do. I was, in Wichita, so I just felt like I had a lot more flexibility and I could kind of, build my schedule more to me. And at that time, again, I was wedding planning, so it just allowed for me to just relax a little bit more once the day was over, where kind of coming home from that other job, I just felt like I could never relax. And I loved it. The agency world is also a whirlwind, and especially an agency like that was brand new. I mean, they love to use the phrase, "We're building the plane while we fly it." And that could not have been more true. We were, putting in processes and then changing the processes a couple months later. We were trying out different platforms and different technology. But I was so lucky to get into that company at that stage, because then I stayed with them for about 3.5 years, until we moved here. And they were so welcoming to like feedback and opinions, and they promoted me twice in that time. I just felt really loved and valued by that company. And so that was, again, how I knew it was the right move to leave the nonprofit after 6 months, because it was just like, again, it was just like a dream job, and it really did work out for me, and I got the best experience I could have gotten. And so, yeah, another whirlwind transition into a different industry, but it just really shapes and grows. And that was really, I think, if I could pick and choose, I think like hospitality and tourism is the industry that I definitely want to pursue more as I grow and get older. But yeah, I loved that job.
Yeah, it sounds so glamorous. Like, let me go to some nice fancy hotels, get a free stay, try out the new bars and restaurants. Like, please twist my arm. I would love to do that.
I get paid to do it.
Yeah, no
It
kidding.
was
Like,
so fun.
to your point, absolutely. It sounds like the dream job. And it sounds like, again, it was a really great place for you to work, not only from the like perk side of the house, but also the experience you got and promotions, etc. So it sounds like it was a really good fit for you. But my question is the switch from, it sounds like, I mean, objectively marketing, right? I am not in the marketing space, so I'm allowed to say this, and the two of you, please roll your eyes if necessary. But objectively, right, there's many ways that you can take it. And it sounds like it was a 180 from the nonprofit, I can't even say it,
Yes.
nonprofit space, then over into this digital agency. And you made the transition quickly, knowing that, this really isn't the place for you. But you made the decision quickly that, again, the nonprofit space was not for you, wasn't filling your cup, whatever this like specific reason would be. And being in a spot that's your dream job, that you love, that you're growing in, what the heck pulled you away? Why leave something like that, which I'm sure is the $1 million question. But I also don't think we've said it yet while recording. I'm sure it has quite a lot to do with where you're currently located. So there's a little sprinkle, but lead us in.
Yeah. So about a year ago, I guess a little over a year ago now, my husband got the opportunity to move to Switzerland with his job. And so we are currently living in Switzerland. We have been here for almost a year now. And so I unfortunately had to leave my job, but fortunately I get to live in Switzerland. And it's been just a blast. It's been so much fun. But yeah, I did have to leave that job for our move. And that was a really hard conversation with my boss. And I tried to be like, is there any way, like, I could stay? But it just, the time difference makes it really, really hard. And it just wouldn't have made sense. And I totally respect that on their part. And so that's when I then decided to do full freelance. So I am fully freelance. I do most of my work in the social media space. There's a few odds and ends in there as well. But yeah, so it was hard to leave that. But at the end of the day, the idea of living in Switzerland with my husband and, traveling the world and being freelance, seemed like a better option, and I stand by that decision today. We've had just an incredible year, and freelancing has been honestly really, really fun and very challenging, but in the best way. And having that job, I think, set me up for success in the freelance world. And so yeah, now I live in Switzerland, and yeah, things are just crazy.
Oh my gosh. I think one thing to call out in your career, Addie, that I'm sensing is you've had a lot of choice. You've had a lot of control. Something that my husband and I are talking a lot about as we explore like our careers and where we're living is that the best thing that you can do for yourself is give yourself options. And it feels like your career, you've been able to make the decision to leave or to move on to the next experience because you've put in the work, you're, like interested in other industries, you're very flexible. And I think that's a good skill to have when it comes to having like a really wonderful and abundant careers. You've given yourself the option to make the choices instead of having to react to choices. I think that's just like a little life lesson in general, is just like giving yourself the option to have some sense of control, whether you realize it or not. That's coming from a control freak, but I'm like, give yourself choices so you can have control. Talk to my therapist about that one later. But I love that you had that conversation with your boss, and like, although tough, I'm sure it was really difficult for them to like watch such a valued employee go, but you've had such an amazing experience. And now I want to get into the specifics of, we'll talk, I guess, two sides of it, is like your freelance journey and how that's been, but also to navigating life in Switzerland. And when you and I had originally met, we talked about transitioning to different cities and making friends and finding your connections. I mean, hell, even finding your dentist, like things like that if you stay where you're at, you don't realize is a difficult thing to work through. So how has it been in your year of living in Switzerland, like the initial couple of months? What was that like?
It was a lot. I mean, when we first got not told, but like asked to move to Switzerland, and we kind of were like, okay, yeah, let's do this, it was kind of like, okay, well, what is there to expect? And I would say like my expectations versus like life over here were completely different. I just had like, I don't know, I just thought it was going to be really, really hard. And I'm not saying that it's not hard, because it is. There are definitely so many challenges to moving abroad, but Geneva is such a lovely city, and it's such an international city that you can really find your way, because there's so many resources, because so many people move here. And we got really lucky because we did move with my husband's job, that they assisted us with a lot of things in terms of, helping us find housing. There's always someone at his company that we can be like, hey, like, who's your dentist? Do they speak English? Like, those kind of questions. Do you have a dog sitter that we could, use? And those are like, to me, those are like the hardest parts about it, is like finding your dentist, your doctor, like you said, the dog sitters, all that. And then on top of that, making new friends in a new continent, in a new country, in a new city. And they do speak French here. And so that was also an added layer of difficulty. So we kind of skipped over this, but we did also move to Houston prior to moving to Switzerland. So we lived in Houston for about a year and a half after we got married. Then we moved to Switzerland. So it was one of those things where we just kind of felt like we had just got our bearings in Houston and been like, oh, we just made some friends here. I just found a dentist here. I just found a doctor here. And then to do it again and just like turn the difficulty level up a little bit, because it's in a new country, and even just like navigating like health insurance and just stuff like that, it just makes everything that much more difficult. But all of that being said, I still like, it has been so much fun and very like enlightening to live here. Like, you just learn so much about the world, about other people, about just cultures, and you just realize like, oh wow, like being from Kansas, sometimes I'm just like, oh wow, there's just so much else out in the world. And now that I'm living out in the world, I'm like, wow, things are just so different over here, but different in a good way. I just love so many different aspects about life in Switzerland. And there's of course so many things that I miss about life in the US as well. But it was such a good opportunity for us to move here at this age. And that was one of those things. It was like, if I have to sacrifice my job, I'm okay with that, because it was this opportunity added so much to my life that a job could never. And just because, we've met so many people now that I just get to hear their life story, and I'm like, that's so cool. I don't know if I would have ever met someone like this otherwise. And so there's obviously so many things to navigate when you move abroad, but my advice would be, if anyone listening to this wants to move abroad, is to do it with a company and do it with a partner. Like, I also give like so much love and like respect to my husband, because I could never have done this on my own. And having someone like at the end of the day that you're comfortable with, that like no matter what, we have each other, and that makes such a big difference in terms of, moving to a new place. But yeah, there's definitely lots of challenges to moving abroad, but so far, so good.
You're still there. That's good.
Still here. So, yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll take it from here.
I thought you were going to ask a question. I'm looking at you. You probably can't even tell I'm looking at you, but
Addy, we usually like bounce questions back and forth, but sometimes I forget where we land.
Oh, it's okay.
It's either that or we interrupt each other, and I'm like, damn it.
Silence. Do you want me to keep talking?
No, you're good. I mean, you make such a good point about your job can only offer you so much. And I feel like this is a lesson that I'm personally learning as I'm getting older and like have the ability to travel, is that life experience is way more important than job experience. It really is. Like, I mean, it's kind of the impetus of the podcast. It's just a job, but like your life is not just your life, right? You can do a new job. You can change industries. You can move somewhere for a job. You can move back for a job. But like that time in the office, like it really means nothing in the grand scheme of things. Your time out of the office is really the valuable, important times. And I think that moving abroad has probably taught you that. I don't know. I think that as somebody who also grew up in Kansas and stayed in Kansas for a little bit and then like moved away, moving is such a skill. And I didn't realize it. Like, no, genuinely, not just the physical act of like moving your stuff into a U-Haul and like moving your apartment, moving hours away from family, moving like multiple states away from family, from friends, is such an uncomfortable experience. And like at first it's very exciting because you're, trying all these new places and stuff. And then as the dust starts to settle, you get into the, oh, okay, wow, like it is on me to make my life happen, right? Because it's not like your college friends are down the street so that you can go and hang out with them. Like you have to put in the work. And I think that if there's any advice I'd always say is like, you have to move away from home at least once. You have to, because there's so many lessons that I feel like in just perspective that I've gained, like what's important to me, what's valuable, what am I looking for? And had we not moved, I don't think that I would have ever learned those lessons. And you can only get a taste of it when you travel, but I think moving is really incredible. And even more incredible if you could do it with a job, because then that's, another reason to like be there and make community to some degree. But getting back to freelancing, how has it been? Because in my head, I think of like the amount of paperwork and like the admin side of it in the US. Oh my God. But then doing that abroad where all of these rules are different and navigating time changes and also like the entrepreneurial side of it. How has this experience been for you?
Yeah. Yeah, there are days where I'm like, I don't think I'm the type of person that's supposed to be like their own boss, Like I don't know
I
if
appreciate that.
Like I don't know if I'm the boss that I need. But then there are other days where I'm like, this is the best. Like I get to do whatever I want, like whenever I want, because I'm the boss, which is such the pros and cons of freelancing. You really do have to be self-motivated and you really have to be determined. And there's just so much that goes on with it. And yeah, so most of my clients are US based. And so I do have to work, US hours, but I get to set my time. And so basically, since we're, 6, 7 hours ahead, I do like all of my things that I need to do in the mornings, go to the grocery store, run errands, do anything like that. And then my afternoons are dedicated to working with my clients and working on work. And so it actually kind of works out really nice because I, log off around 5 or 6, and I'm like, here, look over these things and let me know what feedback you have. Then we can move forward tomorrow. And it's nice because then I log off and they still have 6 hours of their workday left. And so then by the time I wake up the next morning, I have their stuff in my inbox already. And I have 4 or 5 hours before they even wake up that I can just work on it. And it's very, very interesting. And again, coming from the agency life where I had clients who were calling my phone all day long and sending me emails all day long, that it's nice now that I have this like buffer where I have like 4 to 5 hours in the morning where my emails are just silent. And like that is something I just like, I thought the time difference in terms of work was going to be really hard. And there are challenges like meetings. I often have meetings, at like 5 or 6 at night. Not that often though. And so that's like really nice because I just definitely thought that was going to be a challenge I was going to have to face. But that's what's also great about social media is that it is so global and it's so easy to do anywhere in the world. And so like I said, I largely do social media. And so I can, create and publish things whenever I need to. And I just make sure that the times line up and everything like that. But it was definitely hard to navigate at first. And then now that I've got the time down, I would say that was the biggest obstacle was the time difference. But it really now works in my favor, I think, and even in my client's favor too. And then other than that, like navigating it's not if it I hope my clients don't feel like I'm that far away because the world is so small with the internet that I'm available when they need me. And there's only like, probably 5 hours of their day where I'm not available. And even then, like I'm up before they are and can get things done before they even wake up. And so it's been nice. Freelancing is one of those things too where you're always going to be challenged because you can also lose clients so quickly and then you're like, oh crap, like you don't have, if you're at an agency and you lose a client, there's probably going to be another one, or at least you're going to be okay, they're going to keep paying you. And when you're freelancing and you lose a client, then that's income that you no longer have. So that's definitely something that's been hard to navigate as well, but it's just one of those things that comes with freelancing. And I do really like having the creative freedom. Like my old job, there was so many levels of approval. I needed to approve it, and then someone else needed to approve it, and then the client needed to approve it, and then the client's boss needed to approve it. And here, most of my clients just give me free reign. They're like, if you like it, I trust you, just post it. And that, as a social media manager, is like the highest form of currency. I mean, just being able to just post what you want, like when you want. And so it's nice. And I will say, like, going full circle, a large portion of my clients now are real estate, like in the real estate industry, which is so interesting. But I had that experience and then was able to tailor that experience. And now that I'm freelance, I was able to just really use like every little job that I had leading up to this point to then help me get clients and maintain clients and also be able to understand what my clients are talking about because I had jobs in those industries and in so many different industries. And it helps too because I'm able to do like odds and end tasks. I'll have clients be like, "Can you make a flyer? Is that something you can do?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I've done that before. I can make a flyer."
Or like, I make a menu.
Yeah, I can make a menu. I can make a postcard, whatever you need. And so again, it just goes full circle to say like those couple of jobs that I had that were, hey, can you do all of these things? Now I can offer all of these things to my clients too, which is nice because then you can have additional revenue, you can add additional services. So outside of social media management, I can also say, hey, these are a few things I can do too if you need it. And that allows for just a lot of like more like collaboration. Some of my clients, they come to me for social media management and they're like, well, could you also like maybe do this, this, and this? And then it leads to just more and more growth between me and the client. Yeah, it's definitely been interesting to navigate. And I never saw myself being freelance until I got put into the position to be freelance. But I like it. It's definitely been probably the hardest job of my career, but in the best way.
Well, it sounds like you've definitely found your niche. And I love the advice too that like across the random industries and odds and ends requests that you've previously done, look where it's led you and look at the flexibility it's been able to give you at the same time. Like we've talked to so many women now, and I've experienced this myself too, of you're going through your first couple of jobs and you're like, what the hell am I doing? Like, how does this relate to each other?
Yeah.
There's kind of like a single thread that goes through all of it. But then when you get to that position where you're like, oh, that's why I did all of those things. It's all starting to come together. Now it's starting to make sense. And as you said, you look back on that time now with such gratitude, because you're like, if I didn't have that experience where I was like, what the hell am I doing? I wouldn't be where I am now. So fabulous advice for literally anyone in navigating careers when it may not seem linear, but it'll make sense in some way, shape, or form, regardless of the pivot that you take. So I could definitely appreciate that. Looking back on your career, what was the best advice that you ever received?
Yeah, I would say like I had a couple of mentors that would always like kind of just be like, hey, I appreciate your adaptability. And that like really struck home for me, like getting that feedback. I was like, okay, the best thing I can do in this world, especially social media, if you want to go into social media, the number one thing you can do is be adaptable. If you are someone that doesn't like change, I'm going to just go out on a limb and say marketing is not the career for you, because like we've discussed, there's layoffs, there are, clients are going to change their budget maybe from one day to the next. There are going to be, things that close down. Like you could work on a whole campaign only for it to get shut down because of who knows what. And I think that it wasn't necessarily advice, but it was feedback. And it was like, oh, well, I'm going to keep doing that because it clearly, like, was appreciated by the people above me. And I think that also, again, led to me to where I am now, that if I wasn't adaptable, I wouldn't have been able to pivot on, when we decided to move to Switzerland and freelance. I would have had, several freakouts probably. And I haven't had a freak out yet, which is crazy. So I'll let you know. But I think that would be my advice, but also like the highest, compliment that I would receive. And especially, like I said, with social media, like TikTok's the perfect example. Like it was there one day, gone the next, back the next. And as a social media manager, if you're someone that can't adapt to those things and think on your toes and be really quick to respond, it's just not going to be the career for you. And so I think that was the best advice I got, because again, look where it's gotten me. I was adaptable, and then I was able to like move and figure out things all at the same time. And I think that goes into a lot of different industries. Like if you can stay flexible with your career and your mindset, it's going to be okay when things change. It's not going to feel like the world is ending every time something changes at your job. And like we've said, it's just a job. So it's okay when things change and when things, are no longer the same. When you get a new boss and a new coworker. So yeah, I would say that was like the best feedback I received. Again, not really advice, but kind of it falls into that category.
We'll take it. I like it. That was
anything, great. You're providing advice. I remember a boss was like, the only constant is change. And you're like, noted. Okay. I will remember that. Yeah. In everything. Well, Addy, it's been amazing to hear about your career, but I have the big question for you. How do you define success for yourself?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so cliche, but I really define success as happiness. Like if you are able to walk away from your job and you're like, you know what, today was a good day. I think that's success. And, obviously you want to pay the bills and be happy and be like financially stable. And that is also leads into happiness. But I think happiness matters so much more in terms of if you can just be okay with what you're doing, happy with what you're doing, and also not, let work affect every aspect of your life. I think that's really, really important too. And that's how I define success, because I feel like I work pretty hard, but I also take the days off that I need. I go on lots of vacation and lots of trips as we explore like our new home. And I think like those things matter so much. And that was really when it came down to moving to Switzerland, I was like, the life experience is what I want. And like, that's really why I see myself as successful right now is that I'm doing something that I love, that I'm happy, and I'm really getting like wonderful life experience. Yeah, that's how I would
I
define
loved your
success.
I like your call out about having work like impact all parts of your life. That has been the reason I have left multiple jobs in my past life. So definitely resonate with that. We're going to jump into some rapid fire questions for you. So,
Okay.
what is one thing you cannot live without to make it through the workday?
Spotify.
Ooh, that's a new
My
one. I
music.
like that.
I
Ah,
need a music playing. I love it.
Do you
all
have a
right.
favorite?
Share
Yeah.
your playlist.
I have so many.
Ooh, okay, I like it, especially if you have your playlist tailored to specific parts of the day, like calm in the morning and then
Yes.
like pumped up in the afternoon. Yeah. Please
Mhm.
share. Maybe we can include it in the show notes so that everyone could go and follow your podcast or, oh my God, follow your Spotify.
Yeah.
Addy, when working, did you prefer in person, remote, or hybrid?
It's hard. At the time, I definitely loved my in-person job, but now I would say remote. Like at this
Mhm.
stage of my life, I love working from home.
Like preacher from the mountaintops,
Yeah.
the mountains in Switzerland, like preaching
The
with her.
And
Alps.
like, I love
Yeah.
working from different hotels. I love working
Yeah.
when I want.
Mhm. Well, okay, that kind of, I feel like I know the answer to this question, but just to confirm, what is the best perk you've ever had from a previous job?
Yeah, that would definitely be, I guess working remote is a perk
Mm,
in my opinion. And then, but traveling, I think if you're going cool places, I mean, I know some work travel is not very cool, but my last job, like that was such a great perk. I mean, traveling, I probably visited like 7 or 8 different states in a year. And
wow.
it was so much fun. I loved it.
Mhm.
Ooh, that is a perk that I would love to have. I know sometimes we'll get health benefits, and I'm like, come on, more fun answers.
Here's something better. Try again.
Yeah, free coffee. No, boo.
Boo.
Well, Addie, thank you so much for sharing your story and giving us a fresh perspective of what it's like to live in a different country and navigate multiple transitions across industries and moving and life. And I think the biggest takeaway that I'll have right now is focus on life experience. Like your
Yeah.
jobs will come and go. I think that, yeah, life experience is what will stick with you. So, Addie, thank you so much. It's been a joy talking with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. This was so much fun.
Yay.
Of
All right. We'll
course.
include everywhere that you can follow Addie in the show notes, and maybe she'll give you a little taste for what it's like to live in Europe, and we'll all be admiring. But everybody, remember at the end of the day, it's literally just a job. We'll see ya.